The first thing I do is just get lost in the story. On the first reading of a script is very much, am I being taken into this world? Am I engaging with these characters? Am I lost in the story? I'm not thinking about directing the show at that point. I'm just going with the story. No, it's pretty standard. I mean, very much so. More recently, I've been involved in projects from an earlier stage of development. So I would know about the story being developed and have input and work and collaborate with the writer on the development of that script. And then really once you get to the point of a project being greenlit by a broadcaster, then my role as a director obviously kind of kicks in pre-production. And so there'll be a lengthy pre-production period depending on how many episodes of a series that you're going to be directing. And then so it's pre-production, production, post-production. I mean, it's unquestionably about developing relationships with people that you trust. And a huge part of directing, I think, is surrounding yourself with talent on both sides of the camera, and listening to that talent and listening to people's thoughts and ideas, but at the same time marrying that with your own clarity of vision and not letting anybody make it ultimate decisions for you, but absolutely having an open mind and surrounding yourself with, as I say, people that you trust. People whose creative judgment that you trust. Well, I've done a number of projects with Jeff Pope in recent years. We've been working together for 5 or 6 years, and so we're talking about projects up and coming all the time. So I probably first started talking to him about Little Boy Blue maybe 2 or 3 years before we actually went into production with it. I knew that it had been a story that he'd been interested in for a number of years, probably the best part of a decade that was in various forms of development. So I was aware of it 2 or 3 years before we went into production. We were talking about it on and off during that time, and of course during the script development process when Jeff was writing. So that was quite a lengthy introduction to that, because with all factual dramas as well, it's not simply the script, it's the research that goes with it, and it's the bigger story that you immerse yourself in. So there's quite a lengthy time period going through that process, preparing for making a show like that. Well, yes, I mean, Jeff, as I say, Jeff and the producer, Kwajo Dejan, they were on the project for the best part of 10 years, developing relationships with our key contributors, the Jones family, Dave Kelly, the detective who was involved in the case, and many others. And actually, my starting point is, my access point into the story is Jeff's script, because I know how much research has gone into that and how he's distilled that into the story that he wants to tell. But nevertheless, once I've read that script and then immersed in the story, then there is other research that I want to do, and I want to talk to those key contributors, because I'll have my own questions and my own needs that I need to satisfy in order to tell that story effectively. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge challenge. I mean, in the script, I mean, what we're doing, we're recreating obviously a real event where Melanie and Steve Jones went to their beloved Everton FC, and only about 3 days after Reese's murder, and it was part of an appeal for witnesses. But it was clearly an incredibly kind of emotional event, because it was the first time really that you got a sense of the wider community, the city of Liverpool, coming together to support this family. But you read it in the script, and then you see the original news footage of that, and you realise that you have to then recreate a scene that requires 38,000 supporting artists. And the most important decision about that, recreating that scene, was to try and do it for real, i.e. not to have any kind of CGI crowd replication. The scene, the emotional heart of the scene, was the connection between the Everton fans and the Jones family as one family, as one community. And so we took what was a bit of a gamble, really, with the full cooperation of Everton FC, to shoot that scene for real during half-time at a Premier League game Everton were having with West Ham. And we had 4 minutes to get on the pitch at half-time, shoot the scene, and get off again. And so it was really a kind of a one-take hit. We would either get it with one take or we wouldn't. And what it required, of course, was for the crowd, really in their entirety, to stay in their seats at half-time, which is, you know anything about football crowds, half-time is a pie and a pint, and the stadium is half empty. But if we had a half-empty stadium for that scene, then we didn't have a scene. So we, with the cooperation of the club, we put out an appeal to fans, telling them what we were doing, asking them to stay in their seats at half-time, but not knowing until we were out there whether that would happen or not. And it was a wonderful experience because the half-time whistle blew, we walked out with our actors, we were ready to shoot, all within a couple of minutes, and I looked around the stadium and there wasn't an empty seat to be seen. It was very, very special. The crowd were there waiting for us to call action. And as we did, and they responded with the minute's applause, which was incredibly moving, because it wasn't simply about a crowd being there to serve a TV drama. There was still the emotional weight of them connecting with the Jones family. They were there for Melanie and for Steve and for Owen and for Reese. And there was unquestionably an emotional connection that day, and we feel that is reflected in the final scene. We had a great sort of ensemble blend, actually, of obviously very experienced actors and also some first-time actors from Liverpool. That so some of the young guys who play the gang in the piece are first-time actors. They're a combination of a couple of experienced guys and guys who hadn't acted before, and were found by our brilliant casting director Amy Hubbard by trawling youth clubs and boxing clubs in Liverpool for 3 months before I even got there. Saw over 500 young people during that process. I probably ended up seeing about 80 to 100 guys myself. And so that was a crucial element in terms of the authenticity that you refer to, is to get actors from that world, who knew that world, who understood that world, and to blend those with the more experienced actors that we had, and not least Stephen Graham, who also, obviously, it's his home city. He knows that world. In terms of authenticity, Stephen was a wonderful sort of collaborator in capturing the right atmosphere for the whole piece. Yeah, I mean, my process generally is to have rehearsal time built into my pre-production, but my rehearsal time tends to be more discussion rather than getting specific scenes up on their feet and blocking them out, etc. I personally want to hold on to that kind of spontaneity for when we're on the floor, for when we're shooting, when we're on location, when we're doing it for real. But I do like to have a lot of discussion with actors, but also you have to understand, I think, as a director, what your actors' individual needs are, and and they can be very different from each other. So some people like to talk a lot, others don't, and that's part of your job, is to kind of work out how to get the best out of everybody. But in this particular case, because we had first-time actors, we needed to give them the sort of the confidence to come onto a set and to be able to be natural and play as we needed them to play. So during our rehearsal period with Stephen, actually, largely led by Stephen, we did some workshops with the young actors, just really to, nothing specific about the scenes we were going to shoot, but just about their world and their characters, to build up their understanding of what was required of them, their understanding of their characters and the process. And that was incredibly valuable. And it also bonded them as a group, which was something that was vital to the sort of the fabric of the story, that you felt like this was a close-knit gang, as it were. And so we did a sort of workshop exercise with those guys in rehearsals. And my rehearsal process with the rest of the actors really is a sort of page turntable discussion, if you like.